Welcome to the Leading at the Next Level podcast with Dell Development and Consulting, the show built to provide ongoing support for your leadership journey. I'm Wes, and I've got a wonderful opportunity today to introduce you to a very, very dear friend and mentor of mine. I remember the very first conversation. I sat in this chair the very first time I had a conversation with Chris Rollins. It was through, at the time, it was a 90-day roadmap as I was starting the Maxwell certification process. And it was just, I'm going to say, a tumultuous time of my life. And I didn't realize then how much that interaction through those 90-day calls, and they were calls and through one of the 800 number things at the time Zoom wasn't as prevalent back in May of 2015 when I started that. I didn't realize then how much that what was just a passing interaction a couple times a week, or maybe it was every once a week, I forget what it was, how much that would turn into a friendship now that's really shaped the last decade of our life. I'm not going to go into a lot more of your background and your professional background and experience, Chris. I'll let you do that. But I'll say that more than anybody else that I've interacted with in the last decade, the friendship and the business relationship that Cindy and I've had with you and Melissa has been, I'm going to use the word life-shaping for us. Really appreciate you, brother. We love you very much and appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Think the world of both of you as well. Glad to be here.
So dig in with your background. Talk a little bit about who you are, how you got to where you're at, and so on. And then we'll run through some ideas around the ideas of purpose and values.
You say background. So one of the things you brought up, Melissa, my wife, for those that don't know who we are, that may be listeners of yours. I could talk about all of our professional backgrounds, but I have to start with the things that are most important in my life. Well, yeah, she and I have been married for, we just celebrated 34 years. Just enjoying that time. Obviously, the season we're at right now with being grandparents and having the grandkids, which was the best thing in the world, right? But when I think back about professionally where we got started, I oftentimes consider myself what I call the accidental leader. It wasn't something that I set out to really do. I entered the military at 17, so I graduated young. I was 2 weeks out of high school, a 17-year-old brat standing in front of a drill sergeant saying things I didn't think you were allowed to say to somebody. But yeah, it is what it is. So I spent 9 years in the military. I was an M1 tank commander. Learned a lot about getting results, but as you've probably heard me say in the past, Wes, unfortunately, I'll pause and take a breath here. Unfortunately, I also ran over some good people. I wish I had a DeLorean available in the garage with a flux capacitor installed that I could go back in time and change some of that. I still wanted to get the results, but if I could do it without flat running over some good people, I would. So not one of my proudest moments, but something I learned through that. But after I left the military, I entered into the corporate space, spent about 16 years in the rental industry in corporate America, overseeing sales and operations. So really, while we achieved a lot, there was a lot I learned from my military career, a lot of what I wanted to take with me and a lot of things I wanted to change that helped us shape what it was we were trying to do. And as we were getting results, I constantly had so many of my employees would say, when you are training and when you're developing and when you're working with our people, Chris, you're in your element. We see you're in your zone. This is where you're meant to be. And it really led us to looking at what the next step was. You mentioned our connection when you came into the Maxwell Leadership Team's organization about a decade or so ago. We were there back from about 2011 when it initially started. But funny enough, when I joined there, I wasn't looking to do what we do now. I just wanted to be a better leader at work. I wanted to lead my team better. But as I began implementing and working through all of that and started doing it, and people were saying, Chris, this is your sweet spot. Oh my gosh. That's where Melissa and I ended up starting Rollins Performance Group. It's the company we run today. We founded it back in 2012, where we focus primarily on training people. We do keynote speaking as well. As of course, we write. As you've got several books out as well. We currently have 3 books that have been published, 2 bestsellers. 2026 will probably be a whirlwind year, as I would say, because I have about 3 books that will probably release in 2026 that are already under production. So I don't know how the heck I've got myself. And Wes, there's that thing, right? We can spin one more plate, right? With Melissa saying, if you spin one more plate, we can spin one more, but this is a good one. But we're going to make it happen because it's fun. It's good stuff. And it really helps support people. But that's a big part of what we focus on today. Of course, Melissa and I We focus primarily around developing leadership teams and sales teams that can connect better with their employees to build better, stronger teams. And on the sales side, to connect better with their prospects so that they can drastically improve their sales performance results, which is, I think, what really matters to that group heavily. Of course, Melissa and I both serve as executive master trainers in association with Personality Insights. We obviously follow the DISC model of human behavior. It's a human behavior model, for those that may not be familiar with that, that is easily implementable. It's applicable that someone can come in and learn it and apply it without saying, I've got to go study something for 6 months, because not everybody is a nerd like I am that really wants to dive in to human behavior and do things that way. They just want something that helps them take what they learn and immediately apply it in their world. So it's a model that we love. Yes, it's easy to learn and apply, but that doesn't mean it's dumbed down. It's just not complicated and complex, and it helps us understand ourselves and understand others better. We serve as the executive master trainers for the United States. There are 3 globally. Melissa and I are 2 of them. And then we've got an additional executive master trainer that's in Canada, that serves Canada and the occasional international markets as well. But that's primarily our background and what we do today.
Yeah, I love how you shared each of those pieces, and it took me on that journey, because as you're sharing all that, I'm thinking about here's the reasons why, and it helped me gather it in my head. So many of the things that you shared touch on either personal experiences I've had in my own career, or you've heard me talk about one of my lifelong mentors now for almost 30 years, he was 24th Infantry Division tank guy, and he was a West Point graduate and so on. And I remember in maybe 1998, him figuratively grabbing me by the ear and saying, hey, Redneck, you're better than this. And nobody else was at that point. And I think that's a lot of the heartstrings that you and I've got, is there's just so many parallels, commonalities, whatever you want to call it. And thanks for walking me back through that. I'm kind of emotional as I listen through some of those pieces. Now, around the theme, about a year ago, and you were instrumental in the process, and you mentioned some of the books. One of the things that I was just humbled and blown away by, and quite frankly intimidated by, when you asked me initially, I think it was early 2019, maybe it was even into 2018, when you said, hey, I'm going to do a collaborative book on the DISC model of human behavior called Discover Your Team's Performance. Gosh, why are you asking me if I want to be involved? Because I just almost didn't graduate high school because of English and writing and grammar and all that nonsense. It doesn't matter. But it was such a cool experience, and it helped me go through the process to where my third book we'll talk about in a little bit, The Values Advantage. I just got the proof copies last evening, and maybe you can see one behind me right there if you're on in the middle. Yep. But you were instrumental in What's Killing Your Profitability, in helping me put that together and leading with clear purpose. So with those things in mind, talk about how the purpose you've got for training and developing the leaders to get bottom line results. And you mentioned sales, but it's not exclusive to sales. We've got to get those bottom line results anytime we're leading a team. Talk about how that's really been a driving purpose for you to take on that responsibility of launching your own business, Rollins Performance Group.
Again, when I said that people would say, Chris, this is where you're in your sweet spot, it really helped us understand we've got something here that can help people. Everyone's dealing with the same issue. The funny thing is the industry doesn't matter. I look at all the different industries we've served, from the private sector to government to education to military, and just across the board, nonprofits to for-profits to corporate entities to faith-based organizations. Here's one thing they all have in common: people. It really is the people issue. And it's funny, you talked about your mentor bringing that up to you. I look back even into my early days of my corporate life when, again, I wasn't far removed from, my military days. Again, as an M1 tank commander, here you go, mission first, lead, follow, or get run over, as we used to say it. I'm on an M1 tank. It's not get out of the way. You're going to get your butt run over, right? So we would think that. But it's interesting that I remember a VP of mine who is still a friend of mine today. I'm so thankful for his mentorship. And I remember driving through the state one day. We were going to visit some stores, and he was asking me about the location we were going to. And I started talking about NPS scores and growth metrics and this. He says, no, tell me about the staff. What do you want to know? Well, that one's been there X number of time, right? And it was so funny. But he turned around and he said, Chris, you don't understand your business. And I went, what the heck? I was actually mad in the moment, but at least I was teachable. And he said, you've got to understand your business. It really is about the people. And he said, you need to understand one thing. I'll never forget him doing this to me, Wes. Like you saw, but this was the pulling your ear moment. He said, this isn't the Army. They don't have to come back tomorrow morning. And I went, ouch.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that he was willing to say the hard thing, right? My personality style, I can take that. But he was willing to say the hard thing I needed to hear, because as someone who's driven to get results, and that's the way God wired me, I'm not trying to change that, but he helped me see I didn't have to give up what I wanted. But if I helped connect with other people and lead other people in a way they need to be led, we could all get more of what we all wanted, them and me. And so that was really that defining moment, a turning point when I thought about how we led and what we did different. But then when we went from the corporate space to saying, I'm doing this with my staff every day, we need this message to get out to everyone. And so we just found ourselves in a way where we could train people and develop them, because we have such a larger impact. We can reach people in organizations that will then go reach others that we will never meet this side of eternity. But it makes a bigger difference in their lives and in their organization. It serves them, it serves their staff, and it serves the customers they serve at a better level. So it's truly something I think that is impactful in the difference that it makes. It's not about us, it's about the people they serve, and we're able to help them do that better.
Yeah. I'm chuckling as you're sharing that, because I'm walking through that interaction that I had with Terry over the years. And I think it was in the very beginning. I don't remember if it was in an introduction or the first chapter of Discover Your Team's Potential, where you referenced where the idea of soft skills came from. And that was from the military. And I'd seen so many when I worked in manufacturing, and we hired a lot of folks. Gosh, in my last 18 months, I hired 225 myself, but we hired a lot. And I'd seen a lot of folks refer to the folks coming from the military as they're just militaristic and they're this and they're that. And I'll say what you shared in that book opened the heavens for me, because I'd watched Terry be the most people-centered, still super high D. I was on cocaine for the first year that I knew him. It was wild watching that dude. But he was so focused on your people are your business, your safety. Yes, I'm an engineer, but our people. And I watched him be so intentional. And that's what he learned through those soft skills in the United States Military Academy. And it was, but I also remember he was pretty wired for results too. I remember handing him a copy of that book right after it went into print. And he puts his arm around me. This is at his house in November of 2019 in Richmond, Virginia. He puts his arm around me and he says, Wes, I'm so proud of you. You've done a lot of things, from running the stamping press on second shift in 1998 when we met, blah, 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 blah. He said, but you're fat. And I thought, there ain't many people in my life that wouldn't get a bloody nose over that comment. you might be so anyway, we've got to have those folks. So praise God, we have mentors like that can speak into it.
Wes, I want to say this real quick, though. It's funny because you brought up the book, Discover Your Team's Potential. One of the things I'll share about that, I don't even know that I ever shared this with all of the authors that were part of that collaborative process. But part of what went into that, when I came up with the title, of course, y'all all understood Discover, where that came from, right? So I know everybody was clear on that. But why ultimately we landed on Discovering Your Team's Potential is because I have what I call the Chris Rollins definition, if you will, of potential in my life. Melissa knows it's one of my favorite words. So when I talk about the power of words and when we see potential in people, it's like grabbing a diamond out of the ground. You don't grab the diamond out of the ground and say, that's a beautiful diamond. It's rough, it's dirty, it's coarse, it's jagged, it looks bad, it probably has all kinds of cracks in it. You don't grab that and go throw it in a ring. It has to get honed, it has to get shaped, it has to get the bad parts cut off. They take some of that and then they just go use that for industrial use till they end up with the polished, well-cut piece that has all the facets in it and all the other stuff. I know Melissa could give us a history of the way diamonds works as much as she loves them. And then when it's what it needs to be the finished product, it's put into the ring. But ultimately, when someone pulls it out of the ground, we talk about potential. So this is where I say what my personal definition. Potential is everything that someone is capable of becoming in their fully developed state. Think of the end result of the diamond, wrapped up in everything you see in its present state. So when we talk about discovering your team's potential, we're able to look at someone not as the finished product. It's not denying the reality of what's in front of us or in front of them, but it's saying, I see them where they presently are, but I'm also able to see through the other stuff on the outside that might not be polished and good and clean and all that other, but I'm able to see through that, and I'm able to see everything they are capable of becoming in their fully developed state, wrapped up in everything that's standing in front of me in their present state right now. That's why I actually honed in on the word potential. You may be the first one I actually have shared that with, but there was a reason behind what we shared there.
That's cool. Thank you for that. Yeah, I hadn't heard it through the process, and we're now 6 or 7 years removed from it. That's cool. It really leads to my next question, and maybe it's something you build off of. So talk to me about one of your core values, because again, the new book coming out in just a few weeks is called The Values Advantage. And I had a cool experience that I won't go into here, just seeing how important it is in an organization, but for individuals, it is as well. Talk to me about one of yours and how the people that you interact with experience that from you and Melissa.
Yeah, obviously, there's a number of things we could look at when we look at different core values that we have in our lives. But one of the big ones for me, one of those big rock items that I often say is really about connection. And because I find so many people, leadership roles across industries, heck, some of them, Wes, in the speaking industry, where they are amazing presenters, they're good orators from the stage. Oh, I'm trying to say this in a PG version, but they stink. I was trying to think of a good word to use when it comes to communication. They have confused giving out information and good speaking skills, and we train public speaking, so I'm all about good speaking skills, but they confuse giving out information with effective communication. So they're not good communicators. They're not communicating well. Information is simply giving out. Communication is getting through. One of the dangers that people have when they miss connection is they get up on a stage, they speak, and then the stage could be a platform to give a keynote. It could be just you to your boardroom, whatever that stage looks like. But they give their message. The person that, just like you and me, if we were having a one-on-one conversation, the person that happens to share a similar communication style to them comes up and says, "That was amazing." So they think, I must be a great communicator, Wes got it. They lost the other 90% of the room because they weren't adapting their message to communicate to everyone. So they weren't connecting. When I think about the power of connecting as one of our core values, it really comes into understanding when we as leaders connect, truly connect with the people that we're leading. What we're doing is we are essentially affirming them as who they are. We're acknowledging where they are, beginning to understand what their personal goals and desires are. So we're taking their personal goals and desires, we're setting it side by side with the organization's goals, and then we're helping them understand how the two can connect. When we reach these goals, how do they align with helping you achieve your goals? Really align, not a facade, but how they truly align so that the organization cares about them and their goals, and they begin to care about the organization's goals because that's how they get what they want. It was Zig Ziglar. It's the old saying that he once said, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. That's really what connecting does. It helps people as a whole begin to achieve more than any of them ever could as an individual.
Yeah. What a powerful explanation, Chris. The whole second half of Leading with Clear Purpose was that. And I really tied it through the lens of you and I can do it with one another all day long because IDs charge hell with a water pistol. Let's go, baby. We got this.
We fix the world's problem in 5 minutes. That's right.
But if I try to do that with Cindy, I'm not going to be married to year 26, and that's coming up in just a few months because as a really high C, she's going to process, and it's just so we tied that in. Thank you for sharing it in that detail. Now, the next question really builds on that as well, and I'm going to frame it a little bit differently because when I'm doing this with an executive or somebody that works for a corporation, I'm going to say, hey, how do your personal values that you just talked about, how does this align with the company that you're part of? That's not it for you. I'm going to frame it, and we talked about this before I hit the record button. For you, Chris, how do those core values that you and Melissa hold most dear, how do you work to make sure that those align with the clients that you interact with so it is functional interaction when you're serving them?
When we think about how they align with them, the organization, we think as a brand or as a company, one of the big core message values that we often have that we talk a lot about amongst ourselves is excellence. So now I think excellence ties hand in hand with connection. But so that's what we do. How do we deliver in a way? And when I say deliver with excellence, I don't want to deliver. We all love to go train a client, work with someone, whether it's a training at an event or whatever we're doing. Everyone that's human loves to hear great job. I'm not suggesting no one does, but it's not about that. It's about, are we able to deliver at a high level so that they can then implement and apply what they're learning, which is going to help them connect better. We got to put hand in hand together. I see far too many organizations that, I'm just going to be there, this is my D being blunt, that I wish they spent as much time on the delivery of what they provide as they spend on their marketing of it. I think that the marketing of it is crucial. Don't get me wrong. You can have the best product in the world. If no one knows about it, you can't help them with it. But ultimately, once they've said yes, when people want to, if they want to eliminate the price objection, everything becomes cheap when you provide more value than what they expected for what they paid. If someone went to buy a Corvette and they only paid $40,000, they'd say, oh my gosh, that thing was cheap. But if it was a 72 Yugo that's sitting in their parking lot or whatever, I don't know that Yugos are around a 72, but you get the point, right? They would say, what the heck did I just blow all this money on something that's not worth $1,000? So the end result, if it has better perceived value than what they paid for, it doesn't matter what the price was, they're going to say it was cheap. So do we deliver something with excellence? We often say that we obsess, and Melissa, I use that word a lot because Melissa throws obsess in my face there, Wes. We obsess over the customer experience. We obsess over being easy to do business with for our clients. We obsess over delivering at a high level. We obsess over what our clients' goals were, what they need more than just what we want to go deliver. Because again, I can deliver something that sounds well and good, the song and dance, and we looked great, but if it didn't help them achieve their real goal, we failed them. So excellence ties into the connection part. And the reason we tie that together, when we deliver with excellence, we help our clients connect at a level where they can achieve so much more than any one leader could ever on their own.
Well, Chris, the reality is you can't deliver with excellence if the client doesn't understand what they're looking for from what you're providing. And that's a big piece. I remember, and I'll share this because I remember in 2021, we had, like everybody that did what we did, a lot of our revenue streams got shut down. So I'm still doing some staffing. I'm doing the HR work. I didn't really want to, but I like sleeping inside and eating food. So it's what you do. And I remember I was helping an organization do some hiring, and I realized in this process that one of the owners didn't care for the people. I mean, he needed them. And his stance, I asked him why he had so many clients that loved him, but his people hated him. And he says, my clients pay me, therefore I do what they want. I pay my employees, so they need to do what I want. And I said, you deserve no employees whatsoever. And it was a wake-up call in that where he didn't have that same view of excellence as I did. And my guess is if you don't have that clear definition of excellence with the organizations you're working with, what you deliver and what they're looking for might be wildly different, even though, so
correct.
Nicely done. Now, give me an example of an organization that you've served or a community. I know you guys do a ton in the community where you're at in Arkansas. Give me an example of where you've seen a tangible impact where people walk away better. And it doesn't just impact their bottom line, that matters, but it also impacts their lives.
I always say this, the bottom line is going to be impacted when you're developing your team. That to me is the easy part. It's so often what people focus on, because I always say growing people, grow company. If your people are growing, the company will grow by itself. What the statement we would hear John Maxwell say, a rising tide lifts all ships. It's the same thing. Growing people, grow companies. So if we focus on developing our staff and developing our team, the company will grow as a clear result because everyone gets on the same page. There becomes the synergistic force that truly becomes unstoppable. The difference it makes is far more than maybe just revenue or this result, whatever, but it comes in that teamwork, it comes in employee morale, it comes in reduced turnover, it comes in better customer service because happier employees give better customer service. They just do because they're not so stressed out all the time. And we've seen environments where people come in and do everything. I still get emails from clients we've trained, and I can see their email signatures had their communication style in their email signature. I go visit some, and they've got their graphs or their charts or things hanging outside their doors or in their cubicles. I've seen it where they've got the dots that you've sometimes seen us do. They'll literally have their dots 1, 2, 3, 4 in order, top to bottom of their highest to lowest, as vinyl stickers on the sides of their trucks. Now listen, Wes, that's something when you see somebody and you walk up and you say, this truck driver, this is their style. It's amazing to see. Or seeing a construction outfit where they're walking around a job site with it on their hard hat.
Yep.
This is the thing where you talk about being able to walk up. Imagine if you could just walk up and someone had it right there. Oh, boom, I know exactly who I'm talking to. I know how to adjust. That's where it becomes, it's a difference from checking a box in a training to becoming a part of the culture. And when it becomes a part of the culture, it just makes it a better work environment for everyone organizationally. It makes it more fun to lead for the leader. It makes it a more fun place for people to work for the workers. And the leaders truly become a leader that people want to follow. They don't have to follow.
You mentioned the hard hats, and I don't know if I've ever shared this with you. It was within weeks. So here's how we know God's got a bigger plan than our plan. It literally happened within weeks of the first conversation I ever had with you, where I'm working for a stone quarry at the time. I'm doing HR and payroll and helping out with safety and so on, but we're touring another company's stone quarry 2 hours away, and it was gigantic. I mean, picture Fred Flintstone, Barney Rubble, but in real life. And this particular place has trucks that are hauling 100 tons of stone at any given time. And I'd grown up in manufacturing, so I'm used to seeing different certifications for different types of lifts and equipment and all this stuff. And they had exactly that on the hard hats. They had the stickers. And I says to the guy that he was a VP of the organization. He's giving us the tour and showing us all the stuff. And we're, as an executive team, to look at specifically their processes, their procedures, more from a lean standpoint. And I asked him, is this tied to? And he says, no. When I see these colors, I know this is how I need to communicate. When I see these colors, and again, it was kind of God's hand in the mix, because that was within days, maybe weeks of the time that you and I first talked, that he practiced it in real life. And then I'm saying, holy crap, I can help people do exactly that. So it was, that was really neat to see. And you're right, it makes a tremendous impact, because I watched it happen, and we've since seen it happen with hundreds and hundreds of people. So well said, sir. Now, next question I'll toss at you. It's hard to just keep the plate spinning. And you mentioned, hey, there's 3-4 different books you've got coming out in the next 12 months or so. I get it. That's a heck of a lot of work. How do those core values, excellence, potential, the different things that you've mentioned here, how do those things drive you to continue to put the time, the money, the energy, and your life into making sure that you're developing to be what you need to be for the people you serve?
We have to be a product of the product. That's something I learned from a mentor early in my life. We have to be a product of the product. That means as a leader, we have to constantly be growing and developing ourselves. It's funny, you talked about all the interviewing, all the countless, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people I hired through the years over my career. And time again, I would sit down with someone in an interview process, Wes, and say, so tell me what you've been doing to grow and develop yourself. What have you been doing to get better? Well, here's my degree. Time out, buddy. Time out. You know me, they're in the interview, time out. I knew you had a degree. I've already read your resume before you came in here. But what have you been doing to develop yourself? Because that degree was also 10 years ago. Because if you stopped learning 10 years ago, this interview's over. Done, right? I've got time to spend with other people. As leaders, the day we stop learning and growing is the day we no longer have the right to continue leading. We have to continue to learn and grow, because the best effort we have put up to this point has gotten us here. But it's the old saying, what got you here won't get you there. So it helped us get here. I'm not done yet. I mean, the day God calls me home, I'm done. But until then, I'm not done. But thank God he's not finished with me. But when I look back and I say, this is where we are, we have to continue growing. I hope when you talk about what we do in ourselves to continue doing, I hope that I look back. I've seen people do this. Oh, but I look back at this and it was terrible. Oh, Wes, look back at your first book. Look back at your first work you've done years ago. Right? I can look back and discover your team's potential. Okay. Look, I was so mad, Wes. We hit number 8 on the bestsellers list with that book, right? By golly, my last ones have hit number 1. So I learned a lot. If we don't look back at our best work from a year, 5 years or more ago and say, oh my gosh, that stinks, then we're not growing. So as leaders, I challenge people to make sure that we are, when you talk about what we're doing, investing in ourselves. I'm constantly working on being a better communicator, and I teach communication. I'm constantly studying it. I'm constantly learning and working on being a better speaker. Heck, we teach a speaker training workshop, and I still take speaker training every single year. Why? Because I'm not done. I haven't arrived. I'm not trying to be the best person in the room. I'm trying to be the best me in the room. And if I can be the best me in the room and continue to grow, then I'm winning. The problem with trying to be the best person is I think everyone else has to lose in order for me to win. The problem with the benefit of trying to be the best me in the room means I can win and no one else has to lose in the process. So as leaders, that's what we do. Jack Welch once said, who used to run General Electric, but I'll never forget, he said it in the book Winning that he wrote several years back. But he said, before you become a leader, success is all about growing yourself. When you become a leader, success is all about growing others. And it really is a point that every leader needs to take to heart. If we truly want to lead, it's not about us. That's production level. Production is all about what you can do. But you are growing so that you have, it's the old saying, can't pour water from an empty cup. As we continue to grow and develop and learn as leaders, we're keeping a full pitcher so that we have something to pour into others with. That's why we do what we do.
Absolutely love it. And if we had an hour, we could talk that long on just what you said there.
Yep.
Holy moly. It teed me up, though. You commented about when you become a leader, it's about everyone else. Now, often, and Cindy and I ask this question with almost every group we're with, hey, raise your hand if you're a leader. And you know who raises their hands. It's supervisor, manager, or if we're in banking, VP in their title. That's a little bit of a joke. But the reality is that's who raises their hand and say, no. If you interact with other people, you have leadership responsibility. Now, and we've got to make that focus. So the last question, the last formal question that I'm going to tee up for you, and there's one more that I haven't prompted you with. The last one I'm going to say is, what advice are you going to give that young person that you're interacting with that they want to advance their careers and become successful leaders? Not managers, not supervisors, not company owners, leaders, because there's a wild difference.
The first thing I would say to a young person today is, what is the goal you have? Get crystal clear on that goal and define it. And then I would say, do you think you can achieve it? Positive thinking tells us we should set a goal and then believe we can do it. But I go the exact opposite route with that. Cool. So there was a good goal, you got clarity, and you think you can achieve it. Because if you think you can achieve it, that means you think you can do it self-sufficiently. Then scrap that goal because it's not big enough. You have to set a goal that's so big it scares the ever-loving crap out of you. And you say, there's no way I could achieve this. That's when you know you've got a good goal, because it tells you that you're going to need to have others around you. You will never achieve anything of significance in your leadership journey that you try to do on your own. Wes, let me tie it back. I know we started talking about the military when we began, but if I were to wrap that back to a concept from the military, I often say the U.S. military is the greatest fighting force on the planet. Why? It's not necessarily because we got the most talented people. It's not necessarily because we got better equipment, and we may in some of those areas. But here's why we're the greatest fighting force on the planet. Because the typical, sorry to say it, lack of a better word, but the typical civilian mindset watches a military hero movie in Hollywood, and they see Rambo. Well, there he is with an M60 on his hip mowing down 800 people with 40 bullets or something. I don't know. But none of them can hit him. Listen, that guy looks great on a Hollywood TV screen, but he dies in less than 60 seconds on a real battlefield. We fight as a unit. We cover one another's six. We have each other's back. We fight as a force, because inevitably you're going to deal with things that hold you back, and you need that unit together. So to a young leader, I would tell them, you can't do it on your own. My friends, I would say this, the last point I would say with that. When Jesus himself walked this earth, he surrounded himself with disciples. He came to do the thing that he could only do, but other than that one event, he built a team. If he needed a team, here's my Southern slang going to come out, Wes. You ain't that good. If he needed a team, you're not going to do it without a team. So build your team. You've got to be able to rely on others and make sure your focus is on how you can help them grow. If you do that, you're going to have a group of people that constantly want to elevate you. Leadership, like you said, it's not about the title. It's not about the position. That's a leadership role, no doubt, or a leadership title position in a company. But that's just positional leadership, which Wes and I know very well is the lowest form of leadership. The military would say, I'm the leader. I got more rockers on my collar than you've got. Therefore, I'm the leader. That's poor leadership. You are a leader because you help other people get things done. The number one job of a leader is not getting the results. The number one job of a leader is finding the obstacles, keeping your team from getting their results, and removing those obstacles. The best leaders are just obstacle removers. And then everything else flows. That's what I would tell a young person. Make sure you build a team and then focus on removing the obstacles, keeping them from achieving what it is they're trying to achieve. And then you'll enjoy the awards and the accolades and the bonuses and ceremonies and all that other good stuff that comes with it.
Again, another response, we could take an hour on just that. As you're sharing it, there's so many things that go through my head. I'm not even going to touch on it while we're doing the recording. So I'm going to skip it. Now, I'm going to tee the last question up, and I purposefully never put this in writing. I never share it in advance. And after I share it with you, I want to give you a little bit of time to think about it. And I'll give an example of what's going to be in the show notes for anybody listening. So what's the one thing that I didn't ask you that I should have? Now, while you're thinking about that, I'll list. I've got a link to rollinsperformancegroup.com in the show notes. I've got your LinkedIn profile and Rollins Performance Group on LinkedIn. So wherever you're accessing this, reach out to Chris, get to know him. He's been a tremendous impact in my life, and he will be in yours too, if you're smart enough to take advantage of it. Now, what's the one thing that I should have asked you that I didn't?
For me, particularly with this group, I would say the one thing that you should have asked is, that's really well and good for two of us that understand this model well. And I know, you've been taught this very, very well and in depth, and you train and teach on this. But for people that are not familiar with this, how the heck do I figure out where to start? That would be the first thing. So that would be the big question. People say, again, it all sounds good. Y'all understand this, but if I walk away not getting it, it's interesting when I think about the model, I say that there are a few key points of it. Number one, we have to understand ourselves. Now, see, it's funny. A lot of people say, well, I get me, but really a lot of people don't get themselves. That we know what we do, but we really don't know. We've all asked this question. Why the heck did I do that? Well, dude, it's you. You lived in your own skin. You can't answer the question. You don't expect someone else to. So understanding and learning about ourselves is the proper foundation. My favorite book says, love others as yourself. You've got to have a proper love of self and who you are, so that you can then properly love other people the way they need to be loved as well. When we think about that, learn and understand the core of who I am, understand me, understand others, and then learn to adapt the message. So how do we go that route? The question I would say someone should ask is, where do I start? And I would recommend, yes, they take an assessment. It's simple. It's easy. Heck, they can get them from US, right? So you can take them right to your site of where to get them. It gives them out a report based on what they do. And it helps them understand themselves without labeling themselves, but it helps them really begin to get a foundation and understanding of who they are, as well as how to adjust and adapt to other people so they can connect, like we talked about. That would probably be the big thing I would say is, where do I go next? That would be the next step. And it's a simple, low barrier of entry way that someone can start with. And it's not like it's a $500 assessment or something like that, right? They're cheap, for crying out loud. But so they can get that. But that's what I would say should be the first main question.
Yep. So many of the things that you shared take me to specific points in time in our relationship. And I remember in the first session, and we were, I believe, in Dallas, when I went through it with you the first time to go through the Personality Insights Level 1 certification. And so to be able to use DISC model human behavior, I remember completing the assessment under the right, because I've done all kinds of assessments. In 15 years of behavior-based safety, I'm an assessment nerd too. I love that stuff. I went through this in the framework for how do I need to select my responses? How do I genuinely and transparently do it? And I remembered unlocking, and I use that word very intentionally. I remembered unlocking, That's why I do what I do. And I jokingly say this all the time with groups. My dad's told me for 45, almost 50 years, you'll get more patient as you get older. And so far, one of those two things has happened.
When you got older.
I got older. Gray hair shows it, right? And when I saw my assessment results, high D, and when I'm under stress, the S is there, but you can't score lower. And the C is still there, but you can't score any lower. And the I drops a whole lot too, but that D, it doesn't drop at all. It's like, buddy, we're getting it done. It don't even have to be right. Nobody has to like it, but it's going to be done. Maybe we'll apologize later. But it's given me a framework for, how can I be aware of that? And how do I make sure I control that? And it takes a hell of a lot of energy to be able to control that, to make sure that I'm not running over people in the process. And you helped me unlock that by not just taking the assessment, by understanding what it told me.
And of course, you went in depth, not just doing an assessment. And obviously, you and Cindy both going through the certification, the training, the depth of the material so that you could then take it and use it with others as well.
And somebody says, gosh, you all do DISC. Yes, we do. But we try to build it into everything that we say, talk, and do. And even as you're sharing earlier about the connecting, I think about how intentional we are in weaving that into any message we develop to be able to deliver, so we can reach out and we can connect with those people the way they need to receive it, not how I need to present it. It's so powerful. So yes, very, very inexpensive, but more importantly, massive results can come from it. Love that you said that. And on either of our sites and so on, it's easy to find that. And if you have those questions, reach out. Anything else you want to share before I wind the recording phase of this down?
I'm good.
Dude, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this interaction. If you're listening to this wherever, whether it's through the community that we've just launched, or if it's through the actual audio version on the podcast, and you've got questions, or you've got a need for continuing education credit, specifically through the HR world, send us a message. We've rebranded some things, but for years now, almost a half a dozen years, we've been approved providers with SHRM and HRCI. So we've got a ton of resources available. Reach out to us at admin@dove-development.net. Be happy to hook you up with an opportunity to kick the tires and see how we can serve you. But more importantly, ping Chris. Chris has been a wonderful resource for us as well. Just love having the interaction and the friendship that we get to have with Chris and Melissa through it. Thanks so much for being with us today, my friend, and hang with me while I wrap this up, if I can figure out how to hit the right buttons as we're using some new technology. You know what? I don't know how I'm going to do it. So we're just going to end it. Have a great day, guys. Make it a great day. God bless.
See you.